Greetings. Once again, for those who do not know who I am, my name is Scott Exesdale. I'm the state president of the Connecticut NAACP. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to our gubernatorial meet and greet. We thank everyone for coming out. Today, we had an awesome criminal justice workshop forum. Would you all agree? Let's give it up for Attorney Benjamin Crump, who did an awesome job. I'd like to thank all the panelists. I'd like to thank all of the participants. I'd like to thank all of the NAACP branches that came across from all over the state. I'd like to thank all the agencies and organizations that are in the grassroots helping our people that are coming back into society. I'd like to thank the Christian Community Commission, Pastor Donald Morris and also Pastor Eugene Brunson. Let's give them a round of applause. The Brotherhood Summit. You see the brothers in the yellow shirts that have been helping out. Let's give them a round of applause. Just real quickly, Nothing About Us Without Us started pretty much about 2 to 3 years ago. Been working with young brothers and sisters that have been formerly incarcerated, striving to get back into society. I've been in a lot of conversations and a lot of discussions across the state and across the country around criminal justice reform. And a lot of these conversations and a lot of the decisions that are being made, they're not being made from people from our communities. And the decisions are not being made in our communities. A lot of these conversations happen in Hartford, Washington, D.C., and so on and so on. So we thought it was imperative that we brought the conversation to the communities that are being affected the most. And we feel that we're the experts, our communities are the experts, our people are the experts, our clergy are the experts, and the individuals that represent our agencies and our communities are the experts. And they need to have their voice heard. So we have come up with the slogan, Nothing About Us Without Us. No decisions are going to be made about our community without us being at the table. So that's what this is all about, this is what the spirit is all about, and that's what the NAACP is fighting for. So, there's probably about 85 people running for governor right now. But we have some individuals that have pretty much a good, close relationship with the NAACP, and we wanted them to come on and have a conversation with us. What I'd like to do is introduce the candidates that are coming here to have a conversation with individuals that have been formerly incarcerated. This is an opportunity for them to talk to people that have been affected by the system. So I'd like to introduce the candidates first. The first candidate that we have that's going to be a part of this conversation is Mr. Ned Lamont. Let's give him a round of applause. The next candidate is Ms. Susan Bysiewicz. Let's give her a round of applause. The next candidate is Mr. Joe Ganim. Let's give him a round of applause. The next candidate is Mr. Guy Smith. Let's give him a round of applause. And let's give the Republican candidate that came in the House, Mr. Peter Talheim. Let's give him a round of applause. I now want to introduce the panelists that have been formerly incarcerated. First, a dear friend of mine, I call him my big brother, who is keeping me in this fight and in this struggle and keeping me focused on what I need to do. He's from Bridgeport, Connecticut. He served 17 and a half years out of a 30-year sentence. He was granted a 3-year modification where the victim's family forgave him. He's been out of jail for 12 years successfully and is currently the Director of Community Affairs and the manager of the DOC Enterprise House and Residential Program. Let's give it up to Brother Fred X. Hodges. Another dynamic brother from Bridgeport. He served 17 and a half years, also out of a 25-year sentence. He's been out of jail for almost 13 years. He's currently employed as the program director for the Young Fatherhood Program at the Fent Reentry in Bridgeport, Connecticut. He's about to receive his bachelor's degree in psychology at Post University. Let's give it up for Daee McKnight. The next individual is from Hartford, Connecticut. He served 3 years in both state and federal prison. He's been out of jail for 9 years and currently is employed at the Youth Challenge in Hartford, Connecticut, as the intake supervisor and community liaison. He's about to receive his bachelor's degree in human services at Goodwin College. Please give it up, a round of applause for Brother Corrie Betts. From New Haven, Connecticut, she served 8 years in the state penitentiary. She's been out of prison for 8 years. She's currently the lead case manager for the Goodwill of Southern New England. She received her associate's degree in human services, and next month she will receive her bachelor's degree in social work from Central Connecticut State University. Let's give a well-deserved round of applause for Sister Aisha Denson. I will now introduce our moderator. He's from WTNH. He's been in Connecticut a little more than 6 months and has hit the ground running. He hails from North Carolina by way of Atlanta, Georgia. His exclusive reports appear every night on the 6 and 11 o'clock news on WTNH News Channel 8. Please welcome Mr. Mario Boone.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. This is a very important event. We're glad to have you here. I want to thank Scott for inviting me to moderate this very important conversation. I want to thank all the candidates for coming out on a Saturday, and thank the panelists as well for participating and sharing their story. Let me start with a question. I'll dive right in here with a question for, our first question is going to go in regards to marijuana. I apologize. I'm making a mistake already. I want to start with introductions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give a brief introduction of themselves, talk about their platform, what they want you to take away from this opportunity as it relates to them. We'll start right here with Mr. Peter Talheim.
Should I stand?
You can if you like, sure. It's up to you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Yes, I'm a Republican. How about that? Party of Lincoln. I'm very proud of that. Now, my name is Peter Talheim. I'm running for governor. I've never held elective office. I'm running because, like you, I'm very disgusted with the fiscal condition of Connecticut, but I'm also very concerned with political correctness and identity politics and how it's tearing the fabric of our nation apart. Now, the core of my campaign, you'll see in the sign down there, is gratitude, common humanity, and liberty. It's life, love, and liberty, and that comes out of Faith Tabernacle in Stamford. Life. We should be grateful for every day that we have, as none has been promised to us. More importantly is love, common humanity. We're all brothers and sisters, children of God. If you don't like that, the 99.6% of our DNA is identical. All you see is 0.4%. I believe we should be focused on the 99.6% that we share in common. Now, on the economic side, and this has to do with reintroducing oneself into the workforce, you'll see over on the side, there's a picture of a snake strangling Connecticut to death. That's where I happen to see where we are today. The administrative state with its rules, regulations, and fees makes it more difficult for people to earn a living. They just want to earn a living. And that's where we are with the administrative state. And I will get to that later. There's something I'll touch on later, which is called the magic trick, which is why is it that when people, we do not normally jail people for civil debts. And yet, if a man or woman has unpaid child support, they can go to jail for that. So if they want to see their son or daughter, there could be somebody there waiting to arrest them. And I don't think that's a public good. I don't have the final answer to that. But the magic trick is a problem because at the end of the day, somebody who comes out, wants to be their son or daughter, might be arrested by the state. And I'll also touch on how, if you don't do certain licensing, the state can arrest you. Thank you very much.
Our next individual to come up and give his introduction He's already standing. I'll let you come on up. Mr. Guy Smith.
Thank you very much. My name is Guy Smith. I'm a Democrat. I believe in all the traditional Democrat values. I've spent the last several decades leading two giant global corporations, one in Norwalk that actually has a budget larger than the state of Connecticut's. I ran AmeriCares, the big disaster relief humanitarian operation in Stamford, and I worked at the White House for President Clinton, directly for him. You know, I'm not a career politician, not a career candidate. And I'm not going to stand up here and give you a weather report. A lot of politicians will stand up here and give you a lot of statistics on criminal justice. You know what they are. What you need to know is as governor, what will I do about it? First, I'm going to listen to you. The other thing I'm going to do is act and make decisions. Not just talk about it, not just say, well, we'll see what we can do about it. Prison reform. You know, things like private-owned prisons. We've got to educate people that are coming out of the prison system for jobs that exist in the communities. That means we got to have jobs in the communities for them to come out to. We're going to talk more about that with our panel. You ask me a question, you're going to get an answer and not a weather report. We're going to do this together. It's going to be different and better.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call up now Mayor Joe Ganim to give a brief introduction.
Let me say to all that are here, to Scott X, to the NAACP, State of Connecticut, all the local chapters, and I know many of the leaders are here, all that have come together today on criminal justice reform, and those that have marched and are carrying the torch on nothing about us without us, thank you. Thank you for your clear focus, your attention for all of us on criminal justice reform, on second chance opportunities, and what's happening in our society, certainly in Connecticut and in our cities, with regards especially to young people who are being locked up in great numbers, and as a result they're coming out maybe with a loss that is hard to replace, and then without the opportunities, whether it's for jobs or whether it's for social support, in order to reestablish themselves. I'm mayor of Bridgeport. I'm called a second chance mayor. I was mayor for some 12 years. As some of you know, I made some terrible mistakes. I broke the law. I was locked up. I came out and faced, in some ways, the same barriers or obstacles that others have in trying to get reestablished back on my feet. Looked to get back in my profession of choice in education, was denied that. Looked for friends and family support, and was lucky enough maybe to have more than others, and at least be able to move forward to kind of make my way back. But I will tell you, and even trying to get back to where I am now, which is mayor of the city and now as a candidate for governor, there's obstacles and hurdles for all of us. And I know many people face some higher hurdles and higher barriers. So this nothing about us without us is a critical element of this campaign of change for Connecticut. And we don't have a focus on understanding the tender issues of re-entry and how we support not just the individual, but the families that individual is a part of, and how that's a part of a neighborhood and a community and a city in our state. And I think we're shortchanging not just one individual in that equation, but all of us. So I look forward to, am I running out of time? I am. So I look forward to continued dialogue about medical marijuana and ways that we can work together to keep this on the front burner and make positive change in this area for all of us in Connecticut. Thanks so much.
All right, let me bring up now Susan Bysiewicz, our next candidate. Susan, come on up. Let's give her a round of applause.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is such a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. Is this working? I have a long-standing relationship with the NAACP. As Secretary of State, I had the pleasure of working with NAACP chapters across the state to encourage voter registration and participation in the civic life of Connecticut, and also to work directly with the NAACP to help small businesses. All right, let's try that. To help small businesses, particularly those owned by women, by veterans, by people of color, create thousands of good-paying jobs across our state, and I'm very passionate about that and look forward to working with you to further that effort as governor. You know, we have a new normal. With a new administration in Washington, we have a new tolerance for racism, for sexism, for xenophobia, and we cannot stand for that. We have to stand up and fight against it. Just right here in Connecticut last week, Ms. Arvia Walker, who was lobbying in the state capitol, was wearing a button that said, "I stand with black women." And she was disrespected by a state senator who is not a person of color, who represents Hartford, and 70% of his district are people of color. Also, last year, there was an African-American gentleman who lives in the West End of Hartford who was shoveling snow in his driveway and was stopped by the police. So we have a lot of work to do here in Connecticut. We know that white people and black and people of color commit crimes at the same rate, yet people of color are arrested in higher numbers, convicted in higher numbers, incarcerated in higher numbers, and suffer more challenges upon reentry. So this is a very important conversation that we have, and I look forward to continuing to partner with you and continue to advocate for these important issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Mr. Ned Lamont.
Thanks, Mario. And I love the NAACP. And Scott X, as you point out, we're going to be doing some listening today because that's what we got to do. And I'm so proud to be up here with all of you today. Look, I am running for governor, and I want to make sure that Connecticut doesn't represent Trump values, but represents Connecticut values. And for me, those values are FDR, fairness, dignity, and respect. And when it comes to the criminal justice system, I have to make sure that each and every one of you believes that this system is fair. And right now, it's not fair. Right now, with Black Lives Matter, you've seen the composition of our police forces in an overwhelmingly black community, what the effects of that could be. I look at the judiciary, and I got to make sure that the court system, the judges, reflect the diversity, which is Connecticut. I'm going to make darn sure that we have a system that you believe is fair, and I want to make sure that the laws are applied equally. You know, it's shocking to me right now to see how the same drug offense can result in very different terms of engagement in prison sentences, and that is going to end. I'll tell you one last thing of FDR is dignity and respect. And I'm going to make darn sure that each and every person re-entry, coming back into society, has the dignity and respect and all the tools they need to be a productive member of our society. And that's training. I'm a business guy. I'm going to go right to the business community and let people know why each and every one of these folks deserves that. And I'll tell you, I've hired hundreds of people in my day. And it's not where you've been, but it's where you're going. And it's about character and integrity. And I look at the resumes of you four, what you're doing, how you're making a difference in people's lives. That is just the type of character and integrity that I value. Thank you so much.
Let's give them all a round of applause. Thank you, guys. All right, so now we'll jump into the first question, and it has to do with marijuana. Now, I've never smoked weed, but I know a lot of people who do. And you kind of chuckle about it, and in some ways it is a little funny. But we look at what's happening now with marijuana as it now moves into legalization here in Connecticut and other places. And then you ask yourself, well, Pookie and Ray Ray, they're still locked up for marijuana, for weed is what we call it. Why is that? How is that possible? How can we have legalization of marijuana, but people are still serving time either in jail or on probation? So this is the question. As lawmakers move forward with efforts to legalize marijuana, what is your position on restorative justice for people currently on probation or parole or incarcerated, and individuals not in custody but who were previously convicted of a marijuana-related offense? We'll start right here with Mr. Peter Talheim.
Thank you very much. So I'll answer it backwards. Certainly, I've done a YouTube video where I do support Governor Malloy's efforts at prison and sentencing reform. I actually have also an article on my website, saveconnecticut.com, on the same field. I don't agree with his economic stewardship, but I do follow his leadership in this field. However, on marijuana, I'm not on board. Gratitude, common humanity, liberty. Gratitude is to be grateful for every day that we have. And it makes a mockery of our gratitude for life, to want to enjoy it in altered states. And I have a problem also that there are people who would like to sell, I say the soul, for this fast living, where it's okay if your kid ends up wrapped around a tree at the intersection of marijuana and alcohol, because there's no way to measure that. In Colorado, 1 of every 7 youths who uses marijuana is addicted. This is not the way we want to go. I'm sorry, that might not be popular amongst Democrats, but it is the wrong way. Las Vegas, Nevada, fast living. Guess what? Nevada has the shortest lifespan in the nation. And I thought one of the roles of public servants is to have a longer life. Utah, clean living, longest lifespan. So I'm not embracing marijuana, but to the point where there's disparate impact, because there's laws that say if you do it within X distance of a school, well, in an urban environment, we're more likely to be closer to school or places that up your penalty. Those should certainly be rolled back, as opposed to other peers in suburban and rural communities where they're not near the school or some other heightening factor. That should be rolled off, and as a governor, if one has the ability to lessen retroactively the penalty because of, we'll call it a disparate impact, that is a good thing. I am learning. Thank you very much.
So let me just remind you before you come up that the question again, if I could just restate it because I want to make sure that it's clear, because I think everybody knows the marijuana train has left the building. I mean, this is going to happen at some point. So the question again is, as these efforts move forward, what is your position on restorative justice for people currently on probation or parole or incarcerated, and individuals not in custody but who were previously convicted of marijuana-related offenses? In other words, when this thing actually happens, when it does, as it probably will, how do we go back and fix the people who are still in jail, still on probation or parole? Because we can't just forget about them, I assume. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but you can't have a legal system, but people still in jail for it. Something about that doesn't make sense. So how would you guys address that? Guy?
I'm in favor of legalized marijuana. I think we need to expand the medical marijuana availability. And let me answer the question here about restorative justice. People that are in jail right now, that are put in there for a marijuana conviction, need to be let out. Now, review every case and let them out. And if they're already out from a previous conviction, review their case and expunge their record. This is what drives me nuts about this government we have in Hartford. You just have to decide. Don't talk about it, just do it. That's all you got to do is decide. And that's the kind of leadership I'm going to bring to Hartford. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yes, I came out recently with a position in favor of legalizing marijuana, and it's fairly comprehensive without getting into the weeds on it, I guess. It wasn't meant as a joke, it just came out the way. One of the elements of it, though, was, and this is important, but it helps us, I think, on the social aspect of it, is that states are making money on this by taxing it. So there's money there for the state, but if we use that money, and if we apply it where we need it, which is in the reinstatement of the programs in which can help transition individuals back in, as we talked about, which have been gutted, whether it's the nonprofits or some of the funding on a state level that's denied those opportunities because of lack of funding, that's the right place to use the money. Pardons should be given for those that have been convicted of marijuana offenses. They should be given support to reentry. If they're in, they should be out. If they're on a paper afterwards, they should be off. And the record should be clear, in my view, if we're able to change the law in Connecticut. The bigger challenge, of course, the ones that are locked up under the federal system, because they're not going to buckle to us. But it is the way in which I think, unfortunately, in our criminal justice system, we're locking up more young people, more people of color, for nonviolent offenses around something that I hope, if smart legislators are in a position to make a decision this year, will be legal in this state. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think the question assumes that marijuana will be legalized, and I don't think we really know that for sure. So I do want to say, before I go to the restorative justice part of the question, that I do support legalization of marijuana, because there are veterans that struggle with PTSD. There are people with cancer who could benefit from the use of legalized marijuana. We do have medical marijuana, but it's extremely expensive. And so I think this is an important option for families who have loved ones that are ill. And also I would point out that in Colorado, where they have legalized marijuana, deaths from opioid addictions are fewer. So there is a public health benefit. We should, if marijuana is legalized, take a look at every person who is on probation, on parole, and incarcerated for marijuana-related offenses, particularly the ones that are nonviolent, and say, yes, those people should be back out and should have the support they need to be productive members of society. And I will say that there are many more women of color who are in prison now for nonviolent offenses like those related to marijuana, and we need to address that disparity. It's very important to speak up and help those women as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary. Mr. Lamont?
Well, as Mario said, that train has left the station. So New Jersey's legalizing marijuana, Massachusetts is legalizing marijuana. We're going to legalize marijuana. We're going to do it in a thoughtful, regulated way, and we're going to tax it. But also, we're going to legalize it because the laws are so unfairly administered and so unfair who goes to jail. As Peter pointed out, it's extraordinary. We have the drug-free zone around a school. Well, who could possibly object to that? Yet the penalties, if you sell there, are 2 to 3 times what they are elsewhere. And that means almost everybody who lives in New Haven, almost everybody who lives in Hartford or Bridgeport is within one of these zones, and their penalties are 2 to 3 times what my kids are in the suburb. That's wrong and fundamentally unfair. Yes, these people should not have gone to jail in the first place for marijuana, but those folks should be let out, given training, given an opportunity to go forward. And more broadly, I got to tell you, we've got to stop criminalizing behavior like this. We've got to stop criminalizing addictions. I would put the money we make from the sale of marijuana right into opioid treatment, right into opioid treatment. You go into police, you go into a school, you drop whatever drugs you have there, we send you into treatment, no questions asked. No criminalization of what's going on. This is a health epidemic, and we're going to turn it around. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that completes the first question. Now we'll go into individual candidates. Are you guys still awake? You still with us? Yes, no? Okay, this is some important stuff. I want to make sure you guys are still awake out there. Let me now call up the first person who will be asking a question here, Mr. Fred Hodges. I'll call Fred up.
Well, I want to just thank all the candidates for coming, but I just want us to remember something. Bigger than the candidates here. Even if they, if they are elected.
Give Doug the mic, man. That mic ain't working. You can just put that on the side.
Yeah. If they are elected, we'll hold them accountable. If they're not elected, you got to remember something. This is not a moment. This is a movement.
That's right.
We represent 30,000 or more strong in Connecticut. And we need to come together and galvanize on this. I want to thank the NAACP for understanding that and seeing that in us who were formerly incarcerated, and we collaborated with them with our first installment, which was in June. When we marched, some of you were there, some of you weren't there, some of you were afraid to come with us for political reasons or whatever it might be. Then we did a second installment when we collaborated with the NAACP in October, when they asked us to bring 50 formerly incarcerated who've been home for 5 years or more and off paper. We brought 67, and we could have brought 107. This is our third installment, and this is not our last installment. I think about us in terms of, I can remember when a certain segment of society was being discriminated against for their cultural ways or their belief system. I also think about there was a people at one time in Boston that threw tea in the river because they said it was taxation without representation. And what I'm saying to you now is that it's our turn. We've been discriminated against long enough. We're taxpayers. We run businesses. We're in the boardroom and we're in the bathroom. We're all over. And I just want us to understand that we're a force to reckon with, and they're going to have to start changing them labels in the way they call us criminals before I get to the question. Because I'm serious about this. I'm not the author of this, and I won't be the last one to speak about this. But I'm involved with this, and I'm serious about change, and I'm serious about the way they treat us and the way they act towards us like we don't count. So my question is to Ned Lamont. In light of the recent state budget cuts that have been wiped out our basic needs, reentry services such as IDs, employment preparation, etc., what are you prepared to do to ensure these type of reentry services and other reentry services will be funded during your term as governor for services for men and women who are returning from incarceration?
Thank you, Fred, and thank you for everything you do when it comes to reentry, because this is something very close to your heart. Talking about making a difference every day. You and your program makes a difference in the lives of people, and everybody counts. Everybody counts. And it's not where you've been, but it's where you're going. And that's one of the things I believe as a candidate for governor. Look, I'm going to raise the revenues to fully fund everything we need to do for reentry. What it means to have housing, what it means to have an address, what it means to have a kid on a school bus route, what it means to have identification, what it means to get that felony note off your resume so that people give you a chance to get in the front door, give you a chance to sit down and get your life going again. And I say that, A, because it's the right thing to do for each and every one of these people, give them a second chance to get up. And I'll say something else, it's also the smart thing to do. I'll be able to sell this to the business community. I'm going to think, look, we need each and every one of these people ready to get up, work, and contribute as good paid citizens of the state of Connecticut. That's what our future is all about. That's what our future has always been about, Fred. And I promise you that day one, we're going to reinstate that money and make sure that each and every one of those folks gets a fair shot. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Daee. All right, the next question is going to come from Mr. McKnight. Want to come up or stay there?
Thank you. Let me begin by saying, in the name of God, the beneficent, the merciful, to whom all praise is due forever, I greet you all in the greeting words of peace. We say in Arabic, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. The question that I would like to ask is in reference to Mrs. Bysiewicz, and thank all the candidates for being here, and thank the community for your support on these very important issues. like they say, we heard, somebody told me and Fred up in Hartford, I think it was Chris Rosario, he gave us a very important slogan that we really appreciate. We live by that. If you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And I hate to be somebody's meal. But it seems it's been that way for a while. But we're at the table today, and we have the candidates at the table, and we're appreciative of that. So Connecticut has been touted as a second chance state, and they've done some things that have put us on the next level. But since those budget cuts have kind of set us back a little bit, but then there's also some other laws that have been overlooked that disenfranchise people who have been incarcerated, who are primarily people of color in the state of Connecticut. So I'm asking Susan Bysiewicz and the rest of the candidates, according to the General Statutes 18-85A, the law of cost of incarceration puts liens on property or proceeds from litigation or family inheritance of the formerly incarcerated. If someone dies in your family, they can put a lien on it because you've been incarcerated and take that up to a period, which is insane, up to a period of up to 20 years after you have been released. What are you prepared to do to support or push legislation to abolish this law that further disenfranchises former offenders, which, like I stated earlier, are primarily people of color in Connecticut? Thank you.
Look, we should stop punishing the families of incarcerated people. We should start supporting the families. And we should get rid of outdated laws like this one that unnecessarily punishes families of incarcerated people. And what we ought to be talking about is this issue. What can the next governor of Connecticut do to support people who are re-entering society? Because it's important for our families and it's important for our state. We ought to be looking at how we can make sure people have the job training that they need. They have the housing they need when they come out. How is it possible that 10 vouchers in New Haven is enough? But that's what we have right now. And what good is a job if you don't have the transportation to get there, or there's a law that prevents you from getting a driver's license so you can get yourself to work? And what about women who are incarcerated? What's happening to their families if they're a single mom? What about their kids? What are we doing to support families? These are all hugely important issues. And I want to commit to you that if I have the honor of being governor, I will work with employers across the state. And I just heard that at Electric Boat, they are having difficulty finding the talent they need. We have people coming out of prison who would be ready. We banned the box, but there are still federal background checks that are done. And if you have a record, you will be prevented from getting jobs with defense contractors. That is wrong, and I will make it my mission to make sure that people have opportunities for employment across our state when they get out of prison.
Thank you so much. Let me just, if I could just for 1 second, because that's a very important question. And actually, I did not know, just sit there right there, I didn't know that was a law here. Of course, you know, I'm new in Connecticut. I've never heard of such a thing before, but that sounds a bit strange to me. Did you guys get the answer that you felt like you wanted or needed? No. Okay. I mean, that's a very important issue. You come out of prison, you want to start your life, you're already struggling because you deal with this whole history of felon, right? And now you got to figure out, well, are they coming to get my property? Where am I going to live? You know, it's like the deck is stacked even more now. So that's a tough situation to be in, and it deserves a lot of thought, consideration, and really, you know, it deserves somebody who's going to tackle that issue head on. So hopefully Scott and others can work to that end. All right, so let me, we had a gentleman who was supposed to be here. He could not make it, so I'm going to ask his question for Mr. Guy Smith on his behalf. And that question is, for years, the formerly incarcerated have pointed to the obstacles faced
when discharging from the Department of Corrections with no ID. Access to basic needs and other assertive services are essential to one's successful reentry. This is not possible without proper identification. If elected governor, what measures would you take to ensure that no one leaves from the Department of Corrections without proof of proper identification? Mr. Smith.
Assalamu alaikum. Before I start, I just wanted to mention, I'm not a newcomer to this. I'm a life member of the NAACP Detroit chapter. So this question, I'm just going to decide that they will have identification when they come out of prison. How hard could that be? A few weeks ago, I was over on Dixwell Avenue having a discussion with some clergy about prison reform, and they said there's a problem with the educational component of prison reform because people are not being trained for jobs that actually exist in the community they're coming back to. And I said, well, what could possibly be complicated or controversial? Just change it so that you are trained for something. Oh, that's controversial. Let me tell you what, it ain't gonna be when I'm governor. We'll just change it. This is the kind of thing that we have to bring to state government. Why would you send somebody out of prison without an ID? I mean, if you can't bring the ID machine to the prison, put them on a bus and take them to the DMV. How hard can this be?
Very much. I hope Scott doesn't mind if I just interject here. You know, many of you guys know I'm a reporter, I'm on the news, and for some reason, you know, they always send me to the hood when stuff happens. I don't know why. But I don't mind, I grew up in the hood, so it's okay. But one of the issues that I always run into with people when I'm out in the community, the cops will stop people and they want to ask you questions, and people actually go to jail because they don't have ID on them. So this is a serious issue. And just imagine for a moment you're coming out of jail, you want to go apply for, you know, whatever services you need, ID, you know, Social Security, for example, or just a job. And one of the first things you have to do is prove who you are. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to move forward when you don't have the proper tools necessary to do it. So to me, it just makes, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. You release somebody from jail, you give them an ID. I mean, I don't know how difficult that is. All right, let me get off my soapbox. I'm supposed to be impartial here. Let me call up Mr. Corrie Best to ask the next question of Mr. Peter Talheim.
Thank you. Good evening, good afternoon, candidates. Wow. My question is for Mr. Talheim. And the question to you, sir, is national studies indicate minorities are arrested and imprisoned at a disproportionately higher number and receive harsher sentences than their white counterparts. In Connecticut, 71 of the prison populations is African American and Latino. To even the playing field, Connecticut and other states have enacted ban-the-box laws preventing employers in non-sensitive fields from asking applicants about their convictions and incarceration history. What plans do you have for pardons for ex-offenders to reintegrate to the workforces without the burden of a criminal record?
Mr. Betts, thank you very much for your question. I would refer back to what I had said before about when there's disparate impact because you happen to be in an urban environment and that somehow elevated your penalty because you're by a school or some other sensitive area, that should be wiped away. But the focus of the question here is about getting employment. And so, yes, pardons are important, but you know what? The state puts so many more barriers into your way to get a job, not just people who are coming out of jail. Everybody. That is why I have the snake strangling the state. Give you an example. You want to be a barber? You know, W. Du Bois would ask all the time, how many people are now doctors, lawyers, teachers, the town's a tent, but how many people are also owning businesses, capital, machinery, that inquiry, and that has to do with self-employment. This is not always just about, I'm going to be working for somebody. So what if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to cut hair? What does the state tell you to do? Well, guess what? You've got to take 1,000 hours at a school. That's not cheap. Who's got 1,000 hours to spend earning $0? Get some tips. That is a barrier to getting a job. Oh, and by the way, if you decide to cut hair without the license, the state can arrest you. Yes, the state can arrest you. How about doing the most basic thing, a human right, to put food on your plate with your hands in your back? That is as much a right as it is to speak and to practice religion. Guess what? In this state, you must be a home improvement contractor in order to fix your neighbor's door, do some landscaping, do some painting. And if you don't have, as I say, the administrative state says, if you don't have cash in your pocket, if you don't have an attorney, if you don't have a professional to pay the fees of the state and satisfy its requirements, don't even try, don't even apply. At the end of the day, just to exercise a human right of putting food on your plate or of your children, and you don't have the home improvement contractor license, the state can arrest you. There are so many barriers to people getting jobs and working. You have to get these licenses before earning your living, and that prevents you from being an entrepreneur. That prevents you from getting a job. That was it. Thank you very much.
And last but not least, our final panelist to ask a question. This one is going to go to Mayor Joe Ganim, and I'll call up now Aisha Dinson.
Hi, good afternoon. First of all, before I ask the question, I just want to leave you with a food for thought. Everyone thinks it really is simple to make these changes, but yet still they haven't been made. And second of all, I want to encourage each and every one of you to go inside the facility, because we can tell you anything, and we can tell our life experience and our experience of being behind the walls, but you need to go in there and see and talk to people, not to the staff, to the individuals that are actually doing the time. Keep that in your mind. Mr. Ganim, this is a two-part question. What type of meaningful business incentives will you give to major corporations that hire formerly incarcerated individuals? And if you are to ask corporate America to be second chance friendly, will you also hold the state government and its agencies to hire formerly incarcerated individuals also?
Yes, I will, and I think that's the next major step that we need to take is getting the private sector as a part of the equation and the solution, holding their feet to the fire and making them accountable. You know, I applaud, as I think we do, the initiatives by the Obama administration talking about and beginning the process of understanding and recognizing second chance. And I even applaud state initiatives, although I don't think they go far enough. And we've tried to do our own on a local level, which one of the mayor's reentry program, and we've connected businesses, and it's a good program, connected individuals with jobs, real jobs. Some are not the best, but we've got employers to make a commitment to do that. We need to have them step up even more, whether with incentives or agreements, to do much, much more. And your earlier point about going inside, of course I've been inside. And I've had that experience. I've been knocked around by COs and I've been through it. You know, you walk in there, doesn't matter who you are, you get a number after that, and that's what you are, you're a number. But the facilities I was in were dominated by young African-American and minority men. And in disproportionate numbers, many of them, if you have a drug offense in the federal system, you get 10 years, 10-year mandatory. And that means you're doing 85% of that. Doesn't care how you got there or what happened once the hammer goes down in court. Now, how is that? When is enough for a young man with maybe a marijuana offense? And so the whole concept of changing from punitive or penalty to rehabilitative, if that's what it takes, and decriminalization, the time has come. And it's never been, these social changes, if I could just for a minute, have never gone or started from the top. They never started large corporations leading the way. They started individuals like people in this room, like the NAACP, like criminal justice reform men and women like you who not only came back, pushed back against the barriers, but then stepped up and put time in to help others do the same thing. So I applaud you for that. This is starting a movement of convention. I was there with the march and take some pride as I stand here today, understanding the challenge is about nothing about us without us. Thank you.
So that ends the question and answer portion of the discussion. We want to now allow the candidates to give a 2-minute closing remark, and I want you guys to pay very close attention because it's very possible that one of these people, this could be one of your next governors sitting right here. So you want to pay close attention because there's going to come a time where you have to press the button or whatever they do here, push the button or whatever. And, you know, this could be the person. So let's listen closely and we'll start with Peter Talheim.
I'll use this one. It's all good, all good. Yes, so I got 3 times I got to go to first, okay? So you're welcome, all right? Anyway, so who am I? Well, I'm a builder. I've been building houses for the last 20 years, still work with my hands. I am an attorney. I've been in Connecticut, New York. I'm also a realtor at Coldwell Banker. I'm a veteran. I joined the Fort Jack Detachment as a first lieutenant at age 29. I served 5.5 years at the Fort Jack Detachment in the Bronx till I made major. Actually served over in the Panama Canal Zone a few times and also in West Germany. I'm also an immigrant. We came here in 1963 from West Germany after the Berlin Wall crisis and the Cuban Missile Crisis. I am the father of 3 great daughters, and last but not least, I was a Sunday school teacher for 7 years. And that's part of my gratitude, common humanity, liberty, which informs my platform. And I would bring your attention to my YouTube video on prison and sentencing reform. I am learning, but I do believe in the leadership of Governor Malloy in this field. I do not share his party affiliation, but that is one place which is separate from my other Republican running mates that I'm different. So I ask you, look at my YouTube video, go to saveconnecticut.com. You also see an article on there. I do have something called the magic trick, which is not a very pleasant thing, but I do thank you very much for allowing me to come here today. Thank you.
And I'll call on Mr. Guy Smith for his final closing remarks.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for listening. My administration, as your governor, will be one of hope and caring and respect. As we heard Brother Crump in the cafeteria at lunch say, it's about where you stand. You will always know where I stand. A few weeks ago, I was in a small church here in New Haven, having a private conversation with a pastor. And he said, you know, a lot of people for running for office come in here, and I want to ask you, what are you going to do for my community? I said, I'm not going to do anything for your community, but I'm going to do everything with your community. Brother Hodges talked about accountability. I will come back here as your governor and stand here in front of you, and I will be accountable. We will do this together, and it will be different and better. Thank you.
Thank you. And again to NAACP, everyone who's here, thank you for the opportunity to be here for a moment, to stand in front of you, to ask you for your support for me as your next governor. I've been twice, but almost 14 years now, mayor of the largest city. Things have changed dramatically even in the last 2 years. When I came in, now we've got some crazy Republicans running Washington that serve none of the needs that I stand for in trying to move the state's largest city forward for some of the people that have the greatest needs and some of the greatest vulnerabilities. Our state budget's going sideways. So the money for social programs, money for cities is gone. I bring a strong hand at trying to fix the state finances and to build a Connecticut economy, a new Connecticut economy that works for everyone, not just for a few. For people that feel that don't have a voice, that want to be heard. And when someone who's been knocked down, gotten back up, understands the pain, but knows how to, with a skill set, to solve some of the problems, hopefully benefit us all. Look, I look at it like this. It's a great state, but it's not serving, I think, people in urban centers like mine, and I want to build a new Connecticut economy. A new Connecticut economy that has the cities, the engines to drive that. And it includes everyone. And it's from the ground up, money ways like this movement is here today, on social reform, criminal reform, and a better economy that creates jobs and job opportunities. Many of them are second chance. And it's going to be focused on, I believe, if we're going to win this election as Democrats. If Democrats are going to continue to have the honor to serve in Connecticut, we better get it. We better understand that it's going to have to include everybody. And that means that the cities are going to need to come out. They're going to have a piece of this. They're going to have to take ownership of this thing and be a part of the movement so that we can continue to lead, hopefully, with an understanding of the challenges, the need, and then the understanding of how to fix the problem in the state of Connecticut so we can make it a better place for all of us. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here and to be a part of this.
We've been talking about second chances and fairness, but ladies and gentlemen, it's not fair if 30% of the men who are incarcerated get to take advantage of the second chance program when only 7% of the women who are incarcerated get to take advantage of that. So we have a lot of work to do. And I'm very proud of Representative Robin Porter and Senator Gary Winfield, who are fighting for fairness. They've got a bill to prevent shackling of women. Can you imagine pregnant women and women in labor in shackles in our prisons? But it's happened just this year. So we have a lot of work to do. If I have the honor of being your governor, count on me to fight for job training, for education, for pay equity, for women, for people of color, for everyone in our state. You have the opportunity to hire someone to fight for you. I have a record as Secretary of the State of fighting for jobs, for civil rights, and I am here today to ask for your support. I so appreciate the opportunity to be part of this conversation. I look forward to continuing it and to being your advocate and hopefully your leader. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Last but not least, Mr. Lamont.
Well, Aisha, I'd love to go take a tour of that correctional facility. And I've been a professor at Central Connecticut State for some time, so maybe we can go over together because I see you're a student there. And I'm just thinking what a difference elections make and what a difference 2 years makes. Remember this was a couple years ago, maybe you saw that Republican convention. Remember what they were yelling? Everybody yelling? Lock her up, lock them up, lock her up. Well, now they're kind of looking in the mirror, so they're not kind of yelling that quite so much because they see it could be them. But what a difference elections make. Look, whatever else you want to say about Dan Malloy here in Connecticut, he has made Connecticut a leader in criminal justice reform, and I think he deserves a hand for what he's doing. We have many thousands of fewer folks incarcerated right now. We're letting young people out. There's no reason they are in jail right now. Why are we doing that to their lives? We should give them hope and opportunity. That's the place that Connecticut should be. Those are Connecticut values. That's what we stand for. And I'll tell you one last thing. You know, Scott, I got a lot of learning to do. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I know I'm a lot smarter when each and every one of you are in the room as well. And I promise you as governor, you'll be at the table, your folks will be at the table. I want to listen to what we can do to turn this around together. And that's my promise to you. I'm Ned Lamont and I run for governor. Thank you.
So thank you guys, thank all of you. You know, listen, it's Saturday afternoon, it's nice out finally. It's not raining, it's not cold. Not used to this weather, Scott. So my point is they're here, they could be anywhere. They came here, so let's give them a hand for just showing up. want to remind you, this is extremely important. You have to register to vote. It's critically important. You cannot be part of the conversation if you're not able to vote. And in order to vote, you got to register. And as has already been said, if you're not part of the conversation, you're on the menu if you're not. I don't know how that saying goes, but it's true. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Whatever. You get the point. Bottom line is, folks, you got to register to vote. It's just that simple. You know, in these critical times that we're in, regardless of what side you fall down on, before you can even have a say in the game, you got to get registered. You got to vote. Critically important. So again, thank you all for coming out and sharing your platform, your position. All right, so my job is done. I want to call up Mr. Scott, the president, Scott X. Esmond.
This is Mario's first time doing this. Let's give him a round of applause. Young brother. So we will support him and make sure that he's a part of what we're striving to do. This is history. This is history. Where we have people having a conversation with the most powerful people in the state of Connecticut. So it's extremely important to have these relationships, this dialogue, and this conversation. You all are part of this. Give yourselves a round of applause. We thank you all. This is the closing of the session.
Hello, I'm J. Stan McCauley, and I'm exploring a run for mayor of the city of Hartford in the 2019 election. It's undeniable that Hartford has many challenges. However, I believe that our residents are our strength. The question is, do you believe, like I do, in the potential of Hartford? You see the many assets the city has, but do you wonder, as I do, why we are still struggling to move ahead? Do you wonder why the solutions being offered to us just don't seem to get the job done? Well, creating a vibrant city begins with you. We have incredible people who live in the city, who have great solutions to Hartford's biggest challenges. But you don't always have a platform to have your ideas heard, let alone given an opportunity to co-create solutions that work for you, that work for us, that work for Hartford. Hartford's journey will be bumpy, and we'll continue to face highs and lows that challenge us to work smarter and come together as a community that is willing to capitalize on the power of our collective diversity of thought. The challenges facing Hartford will require each of us to act, whether in small ways or big ones. If you're with us on this journey, give me a call at 860-944-9797 and host a listening event for me. Invite a few of your friends so we can explore the possibilities together for a better Hartford.